Analysis of function. Kika means function, so Kika Sangaha is summary of function. This is very interesting. All 121 types of consciousness have their function. How many functions? How many jobs? How many duties? Every consciousness has its responsibility, or function. So, how many functions do we have? There are 14 kinds of functions. 1. Padasandhi, relinking, or rebirth. We experience padasandhi at the moment of conception. Relinking means that it links the past with the past life and this present life. In other words, the first thought moment in this present life links the past life and the present life. That's why we call it padasandhi, or relinking. 2. Bhavanga, life continuum. We've already discussed this, right? It is the factor of life. It's very important. Bhavanga is an indispensable cause, the condition of existence. Without bhavanga, we cannot survive. How many hours do we sleep in a day? Maybe 6 or 7 hours. It's just bhavanga, bhavanga, bhavanga. Without bhavanga, we will die. It is an indispensable cause, a factor of life. This bhavanga arises an infinite number of times during our lifetime, not just when we're sleeping. Whenever the mind does not receive a fresh external object, bhavanga arises. It arises after thought processes, which we'll discuss later. 3. Kuti, decease, or death. Kuti means passing away from life. It's the last thought moment of our existence. The first is padasandhi, and the last is kuti. This is passing away from life. Even though we say it's passing away from life, it doesn't mean that the life stream is annihilated. It's not as if there is nothing after we die. Death is only a prelude to birth, it's just the beginning. After kuti arises, relinking consciousness arises right away. How many types of consciousness perform the functions of padasandhi, bhavanga and kuti? 19. What are they? They are the 2 Santirana Upeka among Ahatuka, the 8 types of Kamavikara beautiful resultant consciousness, the 5 types of Rupavikara resultant consciousness, and the 4 types of Arupavikara resultant consciousness. These 19 types of consciousness perform the functions of padasandhi, bhavanga and kuti. Let's look at Santirana resultant unwholesome consciousness. This is the result of unwholesome consciousness. It is upeka. For whom does this type of consciousness function as padasandhi? For beings in woeful states, hell beings, hungry ghosts, demons, and animals. Their padasandhi is this type of consciousness. This Santirana is akusala vipaka. This Santirana consciousness performs its function for beings born in the miserable, or woeful, states. These beings have this relinking consciousness. It's not just padasandhi either. Please note that the padasandhi, bhavanga and kuti of one particular life are similar. For beings in woeful states, this Santirana performs as padasandhi. And when they sleep, bhavanga, this consciousness performs its duty. When they die, this consciousness performs its function as kuti. The padasandhi, bhavanga and kuti of one particular life are similar in that they possess the same object. No consciousness arises without an object. Even padasandhi has an object. These 3 possess the same object. They have identical mental co-adjuncts. If padasandhi takes any kama as an object, it will be the object for bhavanga and kuti too. The object will be identical. Co-adjunct here means that when this consciousness arises, some cetasika arise together and associate with that consciousness. So, when bhavanga performs its function, the kuti function is the same. They are identical co-adjuncts. We're talking about beings in woeful states, right? Now let's look at the second Santirana Upeka, wholesome resultant consciousness. Who is this for? Some human beings take conception in their mother's womb and are already deaf, dumb or blind. Those people have this relinking consciousness. Some minor gods born in this human world also have this relinking consciousness. It's wholesome resultant consciousness, right? It is upeka. When this person takes conception, rebirth, this consciousness has to perform its duty for padasandhi. When this person sleeps, bhavanga consciousness takes its function. When there is kuti, this consciousness also performs its function. They have 3 functions, padasandhi, bhavanga and kuti. Now, what about the 8 types of kamavikara resultant consciousness? Where do they perform their duty? In the human world and the celestial worlds. Do you know your rebirth consciousness? Which one was it? It was one of these 8 types. We're not deaf or blind, right? So it wasn't rootless consciousness. Instead, it was one of these 8. If our rebirth consciousness was accompanied by knowledge, how many roots were there? 3 roots, alobha, adosa, and amoha. And if our rebirth consciousness was not accompanied by knowledge, there were 2 roots, alobha and adosa. There was no wisdom. Even if you practice meditation for 100 years, you cannot gain any jhana, magga or phala if your rebirth consciousness was not accompanied by knowledge. Who remembers this? We've already talked about it. Try to practice meditation, and you'll know for yourself. If you practice, and you know that phenomena of mind and matter just arise and disappear, you see anicca, or impermanence. By reaching this level of knowledge, your rebirth consciousness must have been associated with wisdom. That rebirth consciousness had 3 roots, alobha, adosa and amoha. On the other hand, someone might try to practice meditation but doesn't see the nature of reality, the nature of mind and matter. They're unable to see this. Maybe they didn't practice enough, or perhaps their relinking consciousness was not accompanied by wisdom. Even if the latter type of person was born with 2 roots, alobha and adosa, but without knowledge, the person still needs to practice meditation as much as possible for the next life. If you can't do it in this life, how can you expect to do it in the next life? But if you do, as a result in the next life, your rebirth consciousness should be accompanied by wisdom. If your rebirth consciousness was the first kamavikara resultant consciousness, accompanied by both wisdom and somanasa, you will likely be a happy person. This is because your relinking consciousness was accompanied by pleasurable feeling, right? And you will also be very smart because your relinking consciousness was accompanied by knowledge. And this type of consciousness is also asankarika, or unprompted. So, if this is your relinking consciousness, when you sleep your bhavanga will also be this one. While you're sleeping, someone could look at your face and you might be smiling. This bhavanga sticks to the past object of the past life. When you die, this same consciousness functions as kuti, with the same object. We've now been talking about the human world and the celestial worlds, where our relinking consciousness is one of these 8 types. It's very hard to get some people to smile, right? Even if they do, it might be hard to see the smile on their face. This is because their relinking consciousness was upekkha, they feel indifferent toward everything. What about the form sphere world? Their relinking consciousness is of 5 types, right? Let's look at the cosmic system of Buddhism, which consists of 31 planes of existence. How many first jhana planes are there? 3, right? Beings reborn in these planes should have the first type of rebirth consciousness, in other words, the first rupajhana resultant consciousness. This consciousness performs its duty as that plane. The second jhana planes are 4 through 6, right? The Brahma who comes to be reborn on these planes has either the second or third types of relinking consciousness. We're talking about rupavikara resultant consciousness, the second and third jhana. They perform their duty as the second jhana Brahma plane. The third jhana plane is 7 through 9. For the Brahma who is reborn in these planes, their relinking consciousness is the fourth rupavikara resultant consciousness. This consciousness performs its duty as the third Brahma plane. What about the fourth Brahma plane? How many are there? 7, which includes the 10th through the 16th. These 7 are called the fourth jhana plane. The Brahma born in these fourth jhana planes have as their relinking consciousness the fifth rupavikara resultant consciousness. Once again, relinking consciousness, bhavanga, and kuti are the same. We've now been talking about form sphere consciousness. As for formless sphere consciousness, we're talking about arupa. There are 4 arupa planes, right? The first arupa resultant consciousness performs its duty in which plane? Ekasanankayatana plane, right? The second resultant arupajhana performs its duty at vijnanankayatana plane. The third jhana resultant consciousness performs its duty in akinkanayatanupagga plane. And the fourth resultant arupa consciousness performs its duty in an eva sanya plane. When all of these Brahmas sleep, the corresponding types of consciousness take their function, their duty, as bhavanga. And when they die, this consciousness takes its function as kuti. So, how many types of relinking consciousness are there? All over the world, throughout the 31 planes of existence, we have only 19 types of consciousness that we call relinking consciousness. These 19 types of consciousness perform the functions of padasandhi, bhavanga and kuti. 4. Avajana, apprehending. What types of consciousness perform the function of apprehending? Only 2, right? What are they? They are panyukatvaravajana, 5 sense door adverting consciousness, and manadvaravajana, mind door adverting consciousness. These 2 perform the function of apprehending. We'll talk more about this when we cover thought processes, but for now, I'll offer an example. When an object enters the avenue of our eye, past bhavanga arises, vibrating bhavanga arises, and arresting bhavanga arises. Then, panyukatvaravajana arises. This means there is 5 door cognition. Eye consciousness, kakuvijnana, then arises, and then Sampadachana, receiving consciousness, arises, and then Santirana, investigating consciousness, arises, and then Vadapana, determining consciousness, arises. So, these two types of consciousness perform the function of apprehending. 5. Dasana, seeing. How many types of consciousness perform the function of seeing? Only two. What are they? They are the two types of Cakkuvijnana, eye consciousness. The duty of eye consciousness is to see, right? Eye consciousness cannot hear, smell, taste, touch, or think. It only sees, right? So, eye consciousness performs the duty of seeing. If someone's blind, do they have eye consciousness? It's impossible for it to arise, right? 6. Savana, hearing. How many types of consciousness perform the duty of hearing? 2. What are they? They are the two types of Sotavijnana, ear consciousness. These two types of ear consciousness perform the duty of hearing. This consciousness cannot see, smell, taste, or touch. They can only hear. That's their duty. Just one job. 7. Gayana, smelling. How many types of consciousness perform the function of smelling? Only two. What are they? They are the two types of Ganavijnana, nose consciousness. They have just one function, smelling. They cannot see, hear, taste, or touch. They just smell. 8. Sayana, tasting. How many types of consciousness perform the function of tasting? Only two. They are the two types of Jivhavijnana, tongue consciousness. You know whether food is delicious or not. This is because of these two types of consciousness. They perform the function of tasting. If the food we eat does not taste good, that is, it is an undesirable object. Which Jivhavijnana is it? Unwholesome resultant Jivhavijnana arises, and if it is a desirable object, then resultant wholesome consciousness arises. We have to understand this. 9. Phusana, contacting. How many types of consciousness perform the duty of contacting? Only two. They are the two types of Kayavijnana, body consciousness. These two types of consciousness perform the duty of contacting. If the contact is an undesirable object, it feels uncomfortable, then the consciousness is dukkha sahagata Kayavijnana. If it is a desirable object, it feels soft and comfortable. What type of consciousness arises at that time? Sukha sahagata Kayavijnana. See? Body consciousness has just one duty, the function of contacting. 10. Sampadachana, receiving. How many types of consciousness perform the duty of receiving? Only two. They are the two types of Sampadachana, receiving consciousness. What object do they receive? 5 sense objects. If the object is good, it should be wholesome resultant consciousness. If the object is not good, it should be unwholesome resultant consciousness. See? Only one duty, one function. 11. Santirana, investigating. How many types of consciousness perform the duty of investigating? 3, right? What are they? They are the two types of Santirana Upeka and the one type of Santirana Somanasa. These three types of investigating consciousness perform the duty of investigating. They investigate the object. Is it good or not good? 12. Vadapana, determining. How many types of consciousness perform the duty of determining? Only one. It is Manadvaravajana, mind-door adverting consciousness. We just saw Manadvaravajana in apprehending, right? It has two jobs. It performs the functions of apprehending and determining. This is good, or this is not good. It makes a decision. When a mind-door process arises, there is Manadvaravajana and Jivana, which we'll talk about later. So, it is Manadvaravajana that performs the duty of determining. No one else can make the decision. Just this one. Santirana Sata is like a detective or spy investigating something, and Vadapana is like a judge, it makes decisions. 13. Jivana, impulsion. Jivana is very hard to render in English. No word fits it exactly, so we should just use the word Jivana. It refers to impulse, which is close but not exactly the same. Some people refer to it as running, as in a thought process. It's maybe easiest for us to remember it as impulsion. How many types of consciousness perform the duty of impulsion? 55. Please note this especially. What are they? They are the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness, the 21 types of wholesome consciousness, including the 8 types of Kamavikara wholesome consciousness, the 5 types of Rupavikara wholesome consciousness, the 4 types of Arupavikara wholesome consciousness, and the 4 types of supramundane wholesome consciousness. Briefly, the 4 types of Phalasata, and, excluding Panyukadvaravajana Sata and Manadvaravajana Sata, the remaining 18 types of functional consciousness, which includes 1 type of smile-producing consciousness, 8 types of Kamavikara beautiful functional consciousness, 5 types of Rupavikara functional consciousness, and 4 types of Arupavikara functional consciousness. Altogether, that's 55 types of consciousness. These are called Jivana Sata. They perform the function of impulsion. When our mind takes an object, depending on whether it's desirable or undesirable, it may be Jivana Akusala, Lobha Jivana, Dosa Jivana, or maybe Moha Jivana. It could also be wholesome Jivana. When you gain enlightenment, it could be Magga Jivana or Phala Jivana. When you gain jhana, maybe Rupavikara or Arupavikara arises. This will all be more clear when we discuss Jivana in detail later. For now, remember that these 55 types of consciousness perform the function of Jivana. 14. Tadaramana, retention. Some translate this as registering. How many types of consciousness perform the duty of retention or registering? 11. These are very easy. The 3 types of investigating, Santirana, consciousness, and the 8 types of great resultant consciousness, Mahavipaka. Together, these 11 types of consciousness are called Tadaramana. They perform the function of retention. The 8 types of great resultant consciousness are Kamavikara, beautiful resultant consciousness. Why are they called great resultant consciousness? Because Rupavikara is only of 5 types, Arupavikara is of 4 types, and Lokutra Vipaka is also of only 4 types. But Kamavikara, beautiful resultant consciousness, is of 8 types, so we call it Mahavipaka. So, these 11 types of consciousness perform the function of retention. We now know all 121 types of consciousness and their functions, right? So, the first one, Lobha Mula Sata, what's the function? Jivana. These are among the 55 types of Jivana. What's the function of Lobha Mula Sata? Jivana. Unwholesome consciousness has Jivana as its function. What about the 8 types of Kamavikara, wholesome consciousness? What's the function? Jivana. What's the function of smile-producing consciousness? Jivana. How about the 8 types of Kamavikara, functional consciousness? Jivana. And all Rupavikara, Kusala and Kiriya, Arupavikara, Kusala and Kiriya, and supramundane consciousness have Jivana function. Jivana is fully enjoying the object. So, according to function, we have 14. But according to classification, Tana, which means place or station, we have 10. We have 10 places. Like with people, some people do only 1 job, while others do 2 or 3. Some people can do 5 jobs. It depends on the person. A teacher, for instance, might have a single job, to teach. But another teacher might also work part-time as an office manager, and maybe at home he's a parent. See? One person may have many duties. In the same way, some types of consciousness have just one function. For example, eye consciousness has only seeing as its function. But Manadvaravajana has 2 duties. Others have 3 or 4 or 5. So according to function, we have 14. And according to place or station, we have just 10. Why? Look at people again. Sometimes we might do 2 jobs at the same location, right? Let's look at these 10 Tana. 1. Padasandhi. 2. Bhavanga. 3. Avajana. 4. Panchavinyana. Pancha means 5, and Vinyana means consciousness. This word refers to 5 sense impression consciousness. It includes the 2 types of eye consciousness, the 2 types of ear consciousness, the 2 types of nose consciousness, the 2 types of tongue consciousness, and the 2 types of body consciousness. These 10 types of 5 sense impression consciousness are collectively treated as one place. When an object appears to our eye, ear, nose, tongue, or body, there is past bhavanga, then vibrating bhavanga, then arresting bhavanga, then sense door consciousness, panyukadvaravajana, and then eye consciousness, for example, arises. Then, there is sampadachana, receiving consciousness. So, between panyukadvaravajana and sampadachana, eye consciousness arises. If you hear a sound, ear consciousness arises in the same place. And so on, they all arise in the same place. And that's why we say there's just one place, one station. You understand that, right? I want to make it clear. If an object, maybe a visible object, a sound, a smell, a taste, or a tangible object, appears, there is past bhavanga, vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, panyukadvaravajana, and then, for example, eye consciousness arises. Then, there is sampadachana. All of you here hear me talking, right? So, there is past bhavanga, vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, panyukadvaravajana, and then ear consciousness arises. Then, there is sampadachana. If you smell something, nose consciousness arises in the same place. And it's the same for tasting and touching. This is why these 5 functions, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and contacting, occur in just one place. See that? We have 10 places, right? 5. Sampaticana. 6. Santirana. 7. Vadapana. 8. Javana. 9. Tadaramana. 10. Kuti. Altogether, according to station, we have 10. And according to function, we have 14. Now, how many types of consciousness take only one function? How many for seeing? Just one. How many for the 12 types of akusala? Only one. What about Javana? 1. Ear consciousness? 1. What's the function? Hearing. Nose consciousness has one function, smelling. It's the same for tongue consciousness and body consciousness, one function. See that, right? Sampaticana also has one function. What is it? Receiving. When we look at Panukadvaravajana, there's just one function. And with Avajana, apprehending, there's one. Look at smile producing consciousness. Only one Javana function, right? With Kamavikara Sobana Kusala, there's one function. Similarly, Kamavikara Sobana Kiriya has one function. Mahagata Kusala also has one Javana function, as does Mahagata Kiriya. And Lokutra, supramundane, consciousness has one function. How many is that altogether? Javana has 55 types of consciousness, 5 sense impression consciousness has 10 types. This is 65, plus Manadhatu, Panukadvaravajana and Sampaticana, which have just one function. So, 65 plus the 3 Manadhatu is a total of 68 types of consciousness with just one function. Get it? We have 14 kinds of functions. These 68 types of consciousness have only one function, accordingly. Now, let's look at 2 functions. How many types of consciousness have 2 functions? Only 2. There's Manadvaravajana Sata, mind-door adverting consciousness. What are its functions? Avajana, apprehending at 5-door cognition, and Vadapana, determining for mind-door cognition. Like you might have 2 jobs, right? Somanasa Santirana also has 2 functions. What are they? Santirana function and Tadaramana function. So, Manadvaravajana Sata, mind-door adverting consciousness, and Somanasa Santirana, investigating consciousness accompanied by pleasure, have 2 functions, accordingly. Next, let's look at 3 functions. How many types of consciousness have 3 functions? Mahagata Vipaka, or sublime resultant consciousness, which is of 9 types. The 9 include the 5 types of Rupavikara Vipaka and the 4 types of Arupavikara Vipaka. We call these 9 sublime resultant consciousness. They have 3 functions, Padasandhi, Bhavanga and Kuti. Now, we go to 4 functions. How many types of consciousness have 4 functions? 8. What are they? They are the 8 types of Kamavikara Sobana Vipaka, or great sense sphere, resultant consciousness. What are these 4 functions? Padasandhi, Bhavanga, Kuti and Tadaramana. How many types of consciousness have 5 functions? Only 2. What are they? They are the 2 types of investigating consciousness accompanied by indifference. What are the 5 functions? Padasandhi, Bhavanga, Kuti, Santirana and Tadaramana. Don't worry about all of this too much. I know it can be confusing. We'll be talking about all of this again. Let's stop here for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.